we're
What
gonna
a
do real
poster.
quick, folks, because I know I don't want to keep y'all there for too long. Wrestling most underrated wrestler of all time, if you had to name one.
Oh, this has always been easy to me. Shelton Benjamin. Never, I will never think twice. Shelton Benjamin, specifically the Ruthless Aggression era, gold standard gimmick, should have at least been world heavyweight champion at least one time. Too athletic, too charismatic in the ring. At his peak, he was at his peak top five in ring performer at his peak. There was no reason not to throw the belt on Shelton Benjamin. He will forever be my vote for most underrated wrestler of all time.
Interesting, you brought up Shelton Benjamin. I thought you were gonna mention Kid Dynamite or Charlie Haas, Luis.
Charlie Haas is great. I feel like Charlie Haas is an underrated entertainer because around 2009, like he cosplayed a lot of the other Ruthless Aggression wrestlers. Like
That
he
was so
cosplayed,
funny.
yeah, like he cosplayed
That
JBL. He was JCL. He cosplayed John Cena. So like he's a very underrated entertainer. But as far as a wrestler and who deserved more in their career, undoubtedly Shelton Benjamin should have been a world champion.
All right, BRF.
Ooh, most underrated wrestler of all time. I could think of a few, but if I had to single one out, God rest his soul, Owen Hart. Owen Hart, man.
Mm.
Owen Hart. And I feel like he had Shelton Benjamin's gifts in the ring, but he was also underrated on the mic and his charisma and being able to carry like feuds or whatever with, his character in the ring, what he did and stuff like that. Like, I feel like WWE, I think when he went the whole Black Heart persona, I can't remember if it was like 97, 98 or whatnot. It was like right when the Attitude Era was like starting to boom. And he went the Black Heart kind of mode where he would like come through the crowd and he would cut these promos and he would leave and like the fans didn't know how to react to him. But then he started going after these heels and he was starting to get over and WWE didn't pull the trigger. And I'm just like, I feel like Owen Hart should have got a legit World Wrestling Federation title run before, tragically he passed. But I think Owen Hart for me is so
Hell of a technician.
oh my God, hella technician. That man could go with anybody in the ring.
You remember with Stone Cold? Remember?
Yes,
and they had a really good rivalry at one point.
They had an amazing rivalry. He was very underrated in how he could carry rivalries, particularly with his mic work. For me, most underrated wrestler ever is Owen Hart.
Big Champ.
Man, BRF. Hey, I gotta give you kudos on that.
Well, I love me some Owen Hart growing up, man. I can't even front.
Yeah,
I personally think he's better than Bret Hart, but I digress.
As a technician, I agree with you.
To be honest with you, I think that Owen was ahead of his time. I think he was a victim of being ahead of his time. I think, to quote the great Chris Jericho, if he would have made it to the Ruthless Aggression era, when you had Eddie Guerrero, another person from Alberta, Canada, we cannot mention his name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. We can't say his name. So, and Perry Saturn and the Radicals, the guys like that. I think if he would have made it to the Ruthless Aggression era with those guys, he would have had a very, very great feud with each and every last one of those guys. Not to mention my most underrated of all time, Chris Jericho, man. Mm-hmm. Chris Jericho, man, look. Chris Jericho is the only person to ever beat Stone Cold and The Rock in the same night. Not to mention, man, some of the feuds that he had with Shawn Michaels, some of the feuds he had with Edge, some of the feuds that he had with Triple H and a lot of other guys. And let's not forget how he put the cruiserweight system on the cruiserweight division. He helped put the cruiserweight division on the map, not only in WCW, but at ECW as well. And, he could do some of the most amazing things in the ring. And he's probably the only person who I can see working with the late, great Chyna and making it actually believable that she could beat him. And being co-intercontinental champions with China and having a feud with Triple H the minute that he got into the WWE, having a last man standing match at Fully Loaded in 2000.
Oh, that match was so good.
Yes. And not to mention, people talk about Kane, but arguably one of the greatest debuts in WWE history was Chris Jericho. Countdown to Y2K. Everybody was talking about the Y2K stare of the dead, to break the wall down. I mean, a mixture of hip hop and rock all put together. And he has some of the most amazing matches that you ever want to see. I mean, you could put him right up there as far as in-ring performer. You could put him right up there with Shawn Michaels. But he's very underrated in my opinion.
Donnie, you want to answer this question?
I can't even remember the last time I watched wrestling. You know what? I'm just gonna say the one name that I know. Randy Orton. There we go.
Out for a dude who don't talk about wrestling, I'll take it. I'll take it.
I know he was just You know what? I'll just leave it as that. I shouldn't be talking about this.
Hey, out of all the names you could have said, I'll take it.
You know what? You know what's crazy? From someone from Iowa, you think I would know better too, but guess not.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Hey man, wrestling ain't your jam. It's all right.
My most underrated, Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Who'd you say?
Mick Foley.
Oh, I thought you said Nick Foles. I was like, wait, we're talking football now?
No. Mick Foley. Mick Foley. Here's why.
Hey, Donnie, you want to get a good laugh? Look at Lawrence Taylor wrestling.
Oh, God.
Facts.
When you look at Mick Foley, well, not just Dennis Rodman too. Let's not forget that. You remember
Lawrence Taylor main event of WrestleMania. That's all you need to know, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a YouTube search for tonight.
But when you look at Mick Foley, physically, you look at him, he's not the most in shape, the best condition. What's so unique about him? He's the king of punishment. Dude will take punishment out of nowhere, getting his ear ripped off. Of course, the cage match with him and Undertaker getting thrown off the top of the cage, choke slam through the cage, the thumbtacks, the great matches that he had with Edge in WrestleMania, Randy Orton, characters from Mankind, Cactus Jack, and one of my favorites, Dude Love. And he mentioned this, and I was watching the A&E biography. One of his favorite opponents at that time was Shawn Michaels. After the match, they had a main event match. I don't remember where it was. Shawn and Mick Foley were having a conversation, and Shawn asked Mick, "Is this who you've always wanted to be, this dark character?" And Mick told him, "No, I want to be like you." Not necessarily like Shawn Michaels, but the type of person that people adored. And believe it or not, Bruce Pritchard, everyone knows who Bruce Pritchard is in the WWE. He, the executive director, he was listening to the conversation about Mick with the character Dude Love, and he's like, "Oh man, I can't wait. I would love to see it." And Mick told him, "I got tape." And Mick and Bruce Pritchard is looking at Mick like this. I'm like, "Bring me this tape." And what's so unique about Mick, man, he takes so much punishment, but he has a charming personality about him. He's gregarious, he's sociable, he's fun, he's lovable. He did a lot of great matches for a lot of young guys. He will take punishment out of nowhere, and he gives you some good matches. You can put him up with almost anybody, and he will give you a hell of a good match for a guy his size. And he did some damn good promos along the way. And Mr. Sacco, who can ignore Mr. Sacco? I mean, remember the Chef Boyardee commercials, BRF champ? Remember all the fun stuff?
Man, I remember that whole round of Chef Boyardee commercials. It was like him. It was Kane. Like I remember all of those.
And Kane is another underrated wrestler too.
But I'll piggyback you. I'll piggyback as far as Mick Foley. his mic work so underappreciated. I have him as a top 10. I have him as a top 10, possibly top 5 mic worker of all time. People just don't realize how good that man was on the microphone. Mick Foley was so goddamn good on the microphone. It's like you're not necessarily into the match like that, but then Mick cuts this promo and you're just like, man, I okay, you got me. I gotta watch this. And then more often than not, you see the match and he's it's not just him taking the punishment. He is not above the business to where he knows when it's time to put somebody over or make someone a made man. Randy Orton would not be who he is today if it wasn't for that hardcore match, Backlash 2003, 2004, 2004, Backlash 04, Puerto Rico, Randy Orton, Mick Foley. We wouldn't know who Randy Orton is, possibly, if he doesn't put on that match with Mick Foley. Mick Foley pretty much made him a made man after that. And his career just skyrocketed because he showed he could get his butt kicked in a match like that, come back, toughen it out, get a win, and it catapulted him. Mick Foley has done so much for the business. I can't argue with that one.
And he even got Stone Cold Steve Austin to laugh out a little bit, particularly where he and Vince, they were like dancing when they were doing the Dude Love stuff. But Mick, and also too, ECW back in them days. Once again, Eric Bischoff made a mistake letting Mick Foley go, kind of like how he let go of Steve Austin, because they thought Mick was too extreme back in those days. Man, ECW, especially with Paul Heyman running things back in them days. Oh, Mick cut off some great promos. And he also did heel. He also ran heel at one point, and it was even more unique because you saw different sides of Mick.
He
can
scary.
be scary, but he can also be loving, charismatic. Unlike most other wrestlers, Mick is the type of person stays at home, be with his wife and kids, doesn't go out for drinks or anything like that. And he's the type of person that he's relatable. And I think that's what they love about him so much. He's gregarious, but also relatable.
I'll add on to another very underrated wrestler that doesn't get much love, and I've been talking about him a lot more recently, and I've been studying up on him a lot more recently, is Roddy Piper.
Yes.
I feel like Piper doesn't get enough love. His heel work, his character work, his mic skills, his entertainment value. The fact that he was never world champion still irks me to this day, because Piper, you can make the argument he's in the top 5 greatest heels of all time. Like, he's that damn amazing. He's phenomenal.
I think the reason why he never got really put over because I'm a wrestling savant, and you can attest to this too. I think all of us can attest to this. Roddy Piper wasn't about to lose because he said it when he first came from the territory. My shoulders will never get pinned to the mat. I think the first person to ever even pin Roddy Piper was at WrestleMania 6 with Bret Hart. Bret Hart was the first person to ever pin Roddy Piper. And considering how long he was in the business, that's saying something. So his inability to do business, I think that hindered him from being able to go over the way it was supposed to go, I would say. Because
I finally got to see that match too from beginning to end. WrestleMania 6, him and Piper and Bret Hart. I finally saw that match from beginning to end. I had no idea how good that match was.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I think his ability to go over, because eventually if you get put over, you have to come down. You have to put someone else over. And I think his unwillingness, and because Hulk Hogan said it himself, and Roddy Piper, God bless him, God bless his soul, he said it himself, I didn't trust anybody in this business, so you weren't about to pin me. So guess what? That's how come a lot of his matches ending. No, he said it himself.
You mean, y'all know you're right.
I didn't trust anybody in this business, so I made it clear to Vince McMahon and whoever I was working for at that time, my shoulders are never going to that mat. So because I don't think people know, there's a lot of, if Roddy Piper did not win a match, a lot of his matches ended in a lot of smashes. A lot of them ended in a lot of smashes. And he did win a heavyweight championship eventually in WCW, Starrcade 1996, the year before Sting did. But of course, it was the NWO, and it was some funny business going on. So yeah. So
Also, another underrated wrestler, I think Rey Mysterio.
I think he's rated, to be honest with you. I mean, I think he's put up there with. He's one of the greatest luchadors of all time.
I think what's underrated about Ray was getting to the WWE and not necessarily having the cruiserweight division to fall back on and having to wrestle the bigger guys and being able to carry those matches with the bigger guys. I think that's something that we really need to put more respect on Rey Mysterio's name because, the whole Eddie Guerrero angle and him winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I know a lot of people talk about that, but honestly, at the same time, you could understand why they went with him for the World Heavyweight Championship. It's just some of the work he was doing with some of the bigger competitors and being able to get good matches out of a lot of bigger guys. So I think that's something we can definitely put more respect on Ray's name as far as that goes.